Hey, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hanging On to Hope podcast.
I'm Brenda J.
And I'm Karen Wonder.
And we are HangingOnToHope.org.
This podcast is intended as educational and is not psychological or medical advice. Always consult a professional when needed, and we disclaim any liability in connection with the instruction, information, or advice given.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hanging On to Hope podcast. This is Brenda J.
And this is Karen W.
So today we have Jet Trudeau, one of our biggest supporters of the nonprofit and podcast and a recurring monthly donor.
So we have Mandy Hall, who is on our advisory board of Hanging On to Hope, the nonprofit, and is a big supporter of the podcast. And we also welcome back Nycole Wilkins from episode 12. She is a psychology major, former social worker, and abuse and breast cancer survivor. She also listens to every single podcast and is a great supporter of the nonprofit.
We also welcome back Danielle Foreman from episode 43 on financial abuse as well. She's an abuse survivor and an expert in finance and listens to many of the podcasts and is a great supporter. So welcome to the show, everyone.
Hello. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here.
So in this episode, we're going to discuss topics that are important to each of our guests that they would like to see change in the world for 2023. None of them know what the topic is ahead of time. So let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah. So mine for 2023 was I was in line with Nycole on the kindness. But then when I heard everyone else's, I was in line with everybody else's. And then I realized that what was really bothering the most lately, like an underlying issue for me, was the body image issue that all women have. What bothers me the most about it is that the world has put these standards on us. Like, who made the rule that having a line on your face was bad? I'd like to know, because obviously the people that are making money off of it.
Yeah.
So then social media messes, especially these younger 20 and 30-year-olds are getting things done that they don't need to do anything. And it just bothers me. It's like underlying. It's always bothering me because I find myself, and Nycole and all my friends know, I'm always criticizing myself. And then I stop myself and then I go, you know what? I can't care. I just can't care what other people think because I need to be okay with who I am and what I look like on the outside. And then that just basically gets rid of that for me for some reason. But I've always been so critical of myself.
Yeah.
And so I know most women are, but I try not to ever let it bother me. So do you other ladies, do you all struggle with body image too?
This is Nycole. Absolutely. I think that's an area where no matter what age we are, no matter what weight we are, because we all have a particular weight that we're used to being at, or a particular way that we're used to looking. And I believe it's something that all women struggle with, whether they admit it or not. And it's an area that I feel like I've made progress on in my life, but I do catch myself sometimes where I know that I still have some work to do in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's hard.
What about you, Danielle or Mandy?
Yeah. So this is Danielle. It's interesting because I grew up with two sisters and four girl cousins that were all anorexic. And so that was really difficult for me. I grew up as an athlete, and it was very different in that world because thin's not in, right? It was like, you want to be strong, you want to be fast, but I've always had a different body type. And I grew up in a very all white neighborhood, and I'm half black, and my body and my hair, like nothing looked like anybody else's. And so I think it's a real struggle. I mean, I have three girls. I watched them go through it, but I can also say that my mom really struggled with body image and weight. And I remember her not really eating. And I feel like I know as a mom, when I got pregnant, my biggest fear was I'll never be thin again. Like, it's just never going to happen. And literally, I didn't want to get pregnant because of it, which sounds terrible, but I think that's a real thing for people because we put so much emphasis on looks. Yeah. I know for me now, it's not really something I struggle with. And I think part of that's just getting away from people that put a lot of emphasis on how they dress and what they look like. And it sounds really cheesy. And I don't mean that you want to look bad everywhere you go. But the same token, people that put a lot of effort into what they look like weren't going to be very good friends of mine because it's what their time was spent on. Yeah. Whereas I was spending my time on building other people up. We're going to have different looks and different lifestyles. And that was the reality. And I think that's helped me a lot, just really grow past, living in Scottsdale and being like, and especially Paradise Valley, like all the plastic surgery. There's a lot of things people do to enhance how they look. And I think the sad part about that for me too is women are just beautiful. Like God made you beautiful. Right. And it's really hard for me to look at somebody and be like, I feel like I wish I could have caught you before you went and did that surgery because you never needed to do it. The truth was that was a lie from the pit of hell that you weren't pretty enough, that you weren't thin enough, whatever it was. I'm like, we weren't meant to all look the same. And I was fortunate enough to grow up all around a lot of men athletes. And I think that kind of helped me when they're like, they all look so different. And they're like, I don't get why every girl thinks they're supposed to be a size 4, stick thin, but super strong. They're like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not achievable, right? It is for some people and not for others.
My ex-husband, I looked frumpy for like 25 years because he controlled me and I was never allowed to look at it. I think I actually care a little bit more about what I'm wearing and stuff because I never was allowed to.
Right.
Even wear makeup for like 30 years. Yeah,
wow.
I never wore makeup. People didn't even recognize me.
That's like the extreme opposite. But it's interesting because I think that, it's not that you can't look pretty. It's not that you can't spend time getting ready. But where you put your time in will show up in your everyday life. And my time spent putting into other people and my family. And so, you can get dolled up, but I think that actually makes a huge difference for women, especially of who are your friends? Yeah. Are your friends constantly feeling like they need to get Botox, eyelash extensions? Like you keep naming it. Right. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with some of those things. I don't mean it like that. But if that's kind of the focus, you need to get some more friends because you're living around spirits you shouldn't be around. Yeah. Right. And that spirit of competition kills women.
So Mandy, did you have any opinion about the body image? I feel like God made us perfect and God doesn't make mistakes. So he sees us as perfect. And so when we criticize ourselves, we almost have to reevaluate and go, well, wait a minute. God loves me and thinks I'm beautiful just the way I am. Kind of in agreement with what Danielle just said.
I agree. And you know what? I do want to say one of the things that she said right in the beginning is ask yourself, what is the goal? Yeah. And when you ask yourself what your goal is in life, like where are you going? What do you want to do? Then that's the start of it, and break ties with all these agreements that are out there from social media and, the world. And just say that that's actually false because I am beautifully and wonderfully made in God's image. Right.
That was Jet. Mandy, did you have anything you wanted to say on that topic?
Hey, this is Mandy. Yeah, I actually do. So body image it's not so much a thing for me anymore, but I was anorexic on and off, starting in high school, all through my 20s, after I got married even. And I had 3 younger brothers. I spent a lot of time in my room holed up with girl magazines because I always loved makeup and it was just always fun for me. But then I started noticing Tyra Banks, like, oh, wow, she's gorgeous. I want to look just like her. Obviously, I never will, but I can try. And it honestly, like that thought process, those magazines led me down this path of anorexia. And, you're going through this time in your life where your hormones are out of control. You're going through puberty, you're going through all this stuff. And my way of dealing with that was to control my eating because it was the only thing I had control over. And I literally would just be in my room crying that God would take the hunger pains away. And it was a very, very lonely time. And of course, my parents were worried about me. They took me to the doctor. They did all the right things. As parents, they never made me feel ashamed of my body or anything like that. Never made negative comments to me. I was very, very blessed. But you just get in your own head. And I was literally killing myself. Like, I think in high school, I actually dropped down to 78 pounds at one point. And so very, very unhealthy. And the only thing that brought me out of it was when I realized that it was displeasing Lord, how I was treating my body, and how when that truth finally set into my soul, my spirit, my heart, I thought, oh my gosh, this is not good. Something needs to change. And I had to slowly reintroduce food into my life. And it was just a huge learning experience. And I wish I could say that was the end of it, but I did struggle with it on and off when I felt out of control in my life. And now that I have two girls who are both preteen at this point, and I look at them and I'm like, I never want them to feel that way, not ever, and I just worry about them having those body issues. And they're very healthy girls, and as far as I can tell, they're very happy with themselves, but I'm always on the lookout for it now. I'm very sensitive to that. And even like when I address things that they may need to address, body wise, whether it's taking care of their skin or hygiene, things like that, I make it more normal. I try to make it more normal to talk about on how to take care of yourself. So it doesn't become this like weird, secretive, sensitive thing. And I always try to make sure I tell them how gorgeous they are, but yeah, it's a really interesting subject when it comes to us, especially guys go through it too, but especially girls. And it's just something very scary that I never want my kids to face.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was just so moving. I mean, that's just a really vulnerable place in sharing that. I'm just thankful. Yeah. Mandy, for that. Thank you, everybody, for sharing on that topic.
And Brenda, before we moved on, I wanted to kind of add on to that topic as we were all talking about it. I am sitting here thinking to myself that I have had a lifetime of struggling with body image issues, but not just body image issues. A lot of related to body image issues is self-esteem and your self-worth. And I've thought to myself, I can work out and make myself look the best I possibly can. I can get Botox. I can get all these enhancements and all those things that we all try to do, which, like Danielle said, there's really nothing wrong with getting some of those things. But if you have an obsession or focus on that, we do need to take a look at that. But I've started to question myself, to what work do I still need to do in myself, as far as my self-worth and my self-esteem, because even if I fix the exterior, it's the interior of me, the inside of me, that there are still broken pieces and broken places that still need healing. Yeah. So even if I could look like that perfect supermodel, and, I have personally competed in the realm of beauty pageants and modeled before. And I know that doing that and growing up and having friends that have done that, people think that we have it all together and they think we have this confidence about ourselves. But if you sit down and really get to know some of those women, including me, you'd be surprised at sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, the deep insecurities that I still have, even though I may present to have myself so together on the outside and take such good care of my body and try to eat right and try to look right. But there are still pieces of me inside that are broken. That even if I can be perfect on the outside, I need to look at myself and say, Nycole, what still needs fixed on the inside? Like, how are you still allowing people to treat you? Or what is it about you? Why are you still trying to control people in situations? And oftentimes when we're trying to control things, it's because things in our lives, growing up and some of the abuse and things I've experienced, I feel like I've had that controlling personality because you take that control on because other things outside of you are out of control. So you just try to control any possible thing that you can. Yeah. So I think that's an important topic as well, that even if we can fix it all on the outside and look great and beautiful and present ourselves as these confident, beautiful women, the truth is that I still have so many broken pieces and broken areas in my life that I'm still working on healing.
That's what Jet was talking about, like what she didn't realize with Patrick Weaver. And now anytime when I have a God encounter with a woman that's been abused, a lot of them won't be Christian. And I'll say, you have to understand that there's a spiritual aspect to healing, or you can't fully heal because your soul has been shattered into a million pieces when you've been abused and you've gone through trauma. And what God does is he picks up the pieces and he puts them back together and makes them more beautiful than you were before.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't go through that spiritual healing, then you don't become whole again. So you can't ever leave out the spiritual aspect of healing. And I started this podcast with Karen, and I was so far away from God on my first episode because I was mad at God. And the more and more podcasts I did, the more I realized that God was real, because every single interview we did, the person gave glory to God for their healing. And I'm like, I can't help everyone in the world because if they want to leave out the spiritual aspect of healing, they're not going to heal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very key. And I know, anyone that follows me on my social platforms, like I just posted the other day about like part of my healing and talking to God, like music has always been a part of me and a part of my heart. And I just shared an old song, Twyla Paris, of me singing the other day that is called "The Warrior as a Child." And it was just like a perfect song for just me, talking to God and praying about things in my life and the healing and the areas that I realize that I still need. And that whole song is just about, we are warriors in the army for Christ, but we get weary in our own battles sometimes, and we need the Lord, and we need to drop our swords and drop our armor sometimes and just go to the feet of the Father.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Nycole. So go ahead, Nycole, with what your opinion was on what everybody wanted to see change for 2023.
No, I think we've all kind of lined up and intertwined with each other. Mm-hmm. They're all topics, and it all shows why we're kind of all connected through your podcast, because it seems like we all have a heart that we want to be kind. We want to be respectful. We want to be those people that we want to see more of in the world. And that makes me feel grateful to be connected with women who are like-minded and have the same goals and the same spirit.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. So does anybody else have anything else to add?
I just want to tell you ladies that I'm grateful for you. Like I said in the beginning, I'm so grateful that you started this podcast. It just amazes me. I'm so excited that you're going to be celebrating your 100th episode. It brings me healing. Like I said, even when the topics do not, directly relate to something that I've been through, I always find some type of healing and something that I can, take from it and grow from it. And I'm just so grateful.
Thank you, Nycole.
We appreciate that. We appreciate your support.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Of course, I'm going to say something. I just want to say that I am just so proud of you two. What you guys set out and accomplished with this podcast is so inspiring. And I know it was not easy. It's a lot of sacrifice. And quite honestly, it's scary. Talk about walking into your fear, facing your fear. What you guys have done is just amazing. I have the utmost respect, and it is my absolute pleasure to support this podcast on a recurring basis. I wish I could do even more, but it's just pretty incredible. And with, again, my Jewish background, they have a saying the Jews always say with the Holocaust, like never again. And I just have so much respect for you two, because it's like you guys are literally taking everything that you went through and saying never again. Like this is where it stops. And your future generations, the future just of both of you, the time that you have and what you're doing with it, and then helping others. I just am amazed and so much respect.
Oh, thank you, Jet.
Yes, thank you very much.
I know God's presence has been here through this whole thing, because everybody that listens to the podcast knows that I am so struggle with emotions. And I probably cried more times during this podcast than in the last 2 years of my life, or maybe 4 years. I don't know.
Yeah, I just appreciate everyone's support because I started a new job in August. And so I feel like I kind of feel bad for Brenda because I feel like more of the brunt of everything has been on her hands because I've been really overwhelmed with this job. It's not been what I thought it would be. And it's been a real challenge. I feel like it's been really hard. I've gone into like a depression and it's just been like this. Wow. I didn't expect it. So the podcast is my passion, but I felt like I had to kind of focus on, I have to survive. I have to push through and do well at this job because it brought out a lot of triggers in me because there's just a lot of pressure at this job. And I really wasn't wanting another high pressure job, but that's just where I'm at right now. So I'm thankful for all of you sharing what you're sharing because it gives me that motivation to keep going because I know this is really the most important thing is using everything I've been through to help other people. So I appreciate you, Brenda, because I know there's been more on you right now. With me having to be so focused on my job.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you guys so much for just everything that you have poured into this, just mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like physically. It's not easy. And I just so appreciate you guys creating something so valuable and tangible that I can send to people that I'm even trying to help, saying, listen to this. I want this to bring healing to your heart and your soul. And I'm able to send them your podcast and talk with them about it. It really just opens up so many doors of conversation. And I just really appreciate your vulnerability.
Thank you, Mandy. That's very sweet.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So thank you guys all so much. I just love all you guys so much and appreciate you all so much. And I just want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. And it's so funny. I think Jet said it. You don't realize how much strength you have or the strength that God gives you until you're put into a position where you have to have it. Mm-hmm. And when Karen started the job, I was like I just felt so bad because it was taking up all her mental and physical, everything out of her.
It still kind of is.
Yeah, it still kind of is. But it was like I was doing so much, not just with the podcast, that I was like, I realized how much stronger I was than I ever thought because my ex-husband made me feel like I couldn't do anything. But I luckily I had a job that made me realize, all those years with Southwest that I could. And I knew that. But this is only just showing me because the enemy doesn't want anything else but to create division for Karen and I, of course.
Yeah.
So I never allow that to happen.
Yeah.
I just won't. So it's a blessing and it's been hard, but it's actually made me stronger. We're doing so many projects right now for Christmas that I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but God is pushing through. This was like the first time I was really nervous for a podcast. We're usually running in last minute. We're very comfortable doing them now, but I was like literally shaking and had a little bit of anxiety, and I don't really get anxiety. So I kept praying, but that's because we had this bad sound I tried to set up the sound system and it had this weird noise, which by the time we started the podcast, it was gone. And so there was this huge attack on this one. And now I know why, because everything you guys said was so powerful. So powerful. And I appreciate all of you so much in the support that you've given us.
As a listener, even if I don't have the experience, when I hear you guys being so real, vulnerable, and then you getting emotional, that's what gets me emotional too.
Yeah.
I think there's beauty in it.
Yeah, it is. And the body image I was so glad Jet brought that up because I don't think people talk about it enough. And I'm glad we talked about it as long as we did.
No, I agree.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Validation. I think a lot of women or influencers are looking for that validation.
Yeah. And now I guess the younger generation, the main job for them is to become an influencer. That's their life goal.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on?
And that, like I said earlier, no, I got emotional. It's like, the people that do that, there's something deeper within them that still is so broken.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
but it's, wow.
And so, you never know what God's going to do.
And you never know who you're going to touch. You would have never known, by the simplest thing that you just being you and trying to help someone.
But if I would have cared like these women, if I would have cared, it's a deeper issue. And I saw that already. So it never bothered me. I'm like, she's a human being that's struggling. Yeah. Stuff like that happens. And we just have to know that there's a spiritual aspect to healing, and I can't deny it anymore. So.
Well, and you are such a vessel that God is using, because it's no surprise to me that see any of the external parts. And it was just, you just let God use you. And there, just in the time that I've known you, there's been so many times that like, I just see how you are such a vessel, and God just uses you with people and circumstances. It's amazing to me. And it's also confirmation that when you submit yourself and you truly want to be a vessel of Christ and his love, that willingness, that openness, I mean, wow, it happens to you so much. I've seen it so much just in the short time I've known you.
Well, thank you. And I get a lot of criticism, like from my family and stuff for it. They're like, why do you have to tell everybody stuff? I'm like, because God uses it. I don't know when he's going to use it, if it's going to irritate one person, but help the next, but I never know.
And
well,
sorry
the
about
devil
my cry.
made me late, because I'm telling you, I had 5 o'clock and I am so sorry.
And when you spoke, it penetrated through my being. I'm like, okay, now I get why she was late. I was like, what's happening to me?
What? Wait, I love you. I was just putting stuff on my Christmas tree. I thought I was fine.
I'm like, why isn't she looking at her phone?
Well, I thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys thank you. I don't want to take up any more of your time, and I can't wait.
Everyone have a happy holiday.
Okay, well, love you guys, and I will talk to you all soon. Yeah, and we just wanted to thank all of our listeners. I know we're speaking to you as well. A lot of our donors, they're obviously not all on the podcast, so we just want to thank anybody for any type of help that they've given us. And we just thank you so much for your support, so much in the support that you've given us.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you too. I appreciate everyone that listens to our podcast, anyone that shares it with anyone that's hurting. So, and I thank each of you for sharing your story and sharing, what you got out of the podcast, because that gives us ammunition, to keep going, because it is my passion. I wish I could just not work and make a living. I wish I could just devote all my energy to this, because this is my main passion, and do that. But I love being able to help people. And so I just thank you all sharing and being supportive of the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Hanging On to Hope. Check out our website, hangingontohope.org. There are resources on there, and if you would like to donate or volunteer, you can do that through our website. We are a brand new nonprofit, so we appreciate any and all support. And we thank you for listening. And until next time, keep hanging on to hope. We are evidence that there is hope and healing for you, and our passion is to help you find it too. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening, everyone.